lot of young people want to be traders or go into the financial industry. Tell me more about how you did that.
I mean, if you have discipline and you don't let emotions cloud your judgment, those are immediately very good attributes to have as a trader. When you want someone to work for you, you want them to represent you in some element. So stay focused.
Yeah.
Right? Make sure that the experiences that you give other people reflect who you are.
Yeah.
Be mature. People will treat you like that. And when an opportunity comes up, they will want you to come and work for them.
Okay, let's go.
I'm Nicole Lee, and welcome back to You Never Know, where we talk about life, career, change, and the stories of people who have taken the unconventional road and embraced the unknowns. If you liked my content and podcast so far, remember to like, comment, or subscribe wherever you're watching or listening to this to help me create more relevant content for you in the future. It means so much to me. Today's guest is a man who began his career not with a title, but with a lot of hustle. From running tickets on the trading floor at Citi to running global operations at a hedge fund, he has worked at some of the world's largest institutions, from UBS to Glencore and Gunvor, where he was chief operating officer, and lived in cities like London and Geneva. But he didn't just stop there. He went on to co-found VECT, the world's first blockchain platform for post-trade energy settlements, backed by the likes of BP and Shell. Today, based in Singapore, he's pioneering the tokenization of physical commodities through his new venture called Commodities, where he's helping to bring real-world assets like gold, oil, and coal onto the blockchain to help expand accessibility, unlock more liquidity, and to redesign capital flows for global commodity trade. I'm super excited to be diving into his career journey today, explore the world of energy and how he's building bridges to take commodities to a more digital future. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome Eren Elvis Zekioglu to You Never Know. Welcome to the show, Eren.
Thank you very much. Wow, that was what a lovely introduction.
Thank you.
I'd want to meet myself as well after that. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah.
And I hope you find my story and my rhapsody interesting.
Of course. I think this is probably the first time we're going to do a two-part episode.
Sure.
It's going to be a longer one. And I actually just met you last week. Was it last week?
Yes, it was a very strange meeting. Very strange meeting. Yeah, it was weird, right? I left.
Good weird.
I reached out to you after seeing you on post another podcast with someone else that's actually in my industry. And then I said, look, I'd love to meet you and have a coffee. And you said, yeah, let's do that. So I walked out of my apartment block, and then you walked out of your apartment block, which was next door to mine. I wasn't sure if it was you.
Me too.
And I was like, is that her? Am I going across town to meet someone that lives 5 meters away from me?
Yeah.
But, I'm not the kind of individual that's going to start talking to random women on the MRT.
Yes.
So I just let it go. And then I saw you get on the train. I got on the train. And I saw you get off the same station.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, if this is her, then this is a great start.
I know. Yeah.
And then you walked in, and I was like, okay, this is an excellent start.
I know. So synchronistic.
It could have been in a nice sort of British comedy.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's very Notting Hill.
Yeah. Exactly. Talking about synchronicities and unexpectedness.
Mm-hmm.
I think that your career journey was such an adventure. You started from trading, and then you did your own hedge fund, and then set up a blockchain platform. It is probably a journey that a lot of people in the finance industry would dream of.
I mean, we all have some obscure dreams.
Yeah.
But for me, I mean, it was never really my purpose. When I sort of, when I was young.
Yeah.
I never really thought of finance as a place where I wanted to end up. I had different ambitions and different visions, and that was away from finance. I studied theatre studies. I was focused on plays and acting, and that's what I really, really wanted to do.
Wow.
But when I got into finance, I sort of carefully orchestrated what I wanted to do. But it was never really an ambition. I did plays, I studied theatre studies, I wanted to go and act. But, I like most people, there's a turning point, an incident happens in your life which makes you deviate from passion. And that's usually a responsibility. So responsibility just put passion on hold.
Right.
So I thought, okay, let me try and, I was quite good at mathematics, I wasn't, that great at anything else apart from mathematics, probably English and acting.
Right.
So I thought, let me try this trading business out, and I applied for a job. But I applied for a job not that suited me. I applied for a job that I'd eventually want in the future. So I think I was about 18 years old, and I saw Citigroup were posting some jobs. And this was back then when they posted it in papers. And there was a recruitment advertisement, and it said portfolio bond trader, £80,000. And I thought, okay, I'm 18 years old. That's the one I want.
Right.
Obviously, I'm not qualified for such a role. My qualifications do not correlate to that kind of attribute. And I just applied. And luckily, they found my letter kind of amusing. And I probably maybe used my sort of background in sort of pretending to be someone that was immensely confident. And I got a job from there. And from there, it just scoped out and started to understand how the money markets worked.
What did you write in your cover letter?
I wrote that I was extremely ambitious and I could totally fulfill this role. I haven't got 15 years experience. I've only been alive 18 years, but if you invest, I just wrote something kind of comical.
Right.
Because, if I'd got my application letter, I would have probably just thrown it in the bin. But I think maybe I just showed a bit of hustle. Maybe I showed a bit of ambition. And I turned up there in a suit that was 2 sizes too big for me, shoes that were too big for me, and a tie that I didn't really know how to tie up.
Right.
And I think the guy that interviewed me sort of took a shining to me. And I think when you are in that industry, it's always one individual that takes a chance. And he turned into be quite a mentor, actually. I didn't get the job.
Right, you didn't get the job.
I didn't get the job because obviously he just said, look, you're not going to get the job, but do you know what this is? And he pointed to a fax machine.
Wait, you didn't get a job, but they called you in for an interview.
They called me in for an interview just to see who wrote this letter, right? Let's meet the guy that penned this together. Who is this 18-year-old kid that is, hasn't gone to university?
Yeah.
Who's just come out of theatre studies. We were just, when I spoke to him, he said, look, I read your letter, then I passed it to a few people on the floor, and the HR lady said, you've got to read this. It's absolutely hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
So I don't know. I didn't see it as funny. I thought, okay, I've really made an impression.
Right.
And obviously he brought me down a peg or two in the interview and just said, look, it's good that you have an aspiration and a vision and a target of what you want to do, but to be a portfolio manager that specializes in bond trading, good 15, 20 years experience, someone usually in their 40s and 50s and whatnot. You're 18. So after a few hours, chatting to him, he said to me, okay, I like the way you think. And I started explaining to him, how I thought macroeconomics worked and how I thought volatility worked and whatnot. And I just sort of, in the UK we call it blagged it.
What's that?
We blagged it. It's this term where we just say, look, we talked a good game.
Right.
And he liked my confidence. And he said, I think you should come and work for Citigroup, but I'm going to give you a different kind of job.
I see. So you didn't go to university?
No.
Right. So because you wrote that crazy funny letter.
I was on my way to uni. I did theatre studies. I was doing my A-levels and I thought, university is where I want to get to. But, as I said, an incident happened and I needed to stay home and support family.
Right.
And I knew that if I ended up at university, I'd come out in debt.
Right.
And not being able to focus on my family at the time.
Interesting.
So I thought, okay, let me go and earn. And I'll put this and I'll come and revisit this later. I didn't.
Right.
I got completely swallowed by finance.
Yeah. It's interesting how circumstances in life sort of shift and shape your path even though you didn't really expect it, right?
Yeah, I think it was maybe just written.
Yeah.
You know,
In
I
the
think
stars.
my passion was maybe just singular. And it was just, I latched onto something which I was very good at.
Yeah.
And I think other people around me told me I was very good at it. And I thought, okay, then this must be it. Because, you know, when you're 18,
you don't know.
you're either, you don't know. You don't really know unless you're given direction. I didn't have much direction. So
Yeah, I know, I get it. Even when you're 20, 30, 40, some people still don't, still looking for that direction, right?
yeah, but I think sometimes you have to stop asking yourself what I want to do and where I need to be and just try everything.
Agree, yeah.
And I think that sort of stance went through my whole career. Just kept trying things that I'd never done before, but take every learning I had from every job I had, every position I had, and carried it through to the next. Because I think everything's transferable.
Yeah, for sure.
So when I first got my job, had my very first interview, the only skill set I had was how to act, how to present myself, how to speak, how to deliver. All I had was those attributes. So for me, from that day, actually, probably the interview process was one of the most easiest parts of my entire career because I knew how to deliver. If you can represent yourself, doors open. Yeah.
That's a really good lesson for so many people.
You should.
Yeah,
and
right?
a lot of people that suffer, lack of confidence.
Yes.
I think having a background in the arts helps, especially drama.
Yeah.
Because no matter how, no matter what confidence you lack in yourself, for a brief moment, you can be someone else.
Wow, yeah.
And if you can pretend to be someone else, it's powerful and people are attracted to that.
Right.
So back then, for me to prepare for an interview, I just played a character.
Yeah. So many people, particularly in Asia, I'm not sure about in Europe, who, including myself, who often think that people should recognize my abilities. Yeah. And sometimes we often underestimate how much of the communication aspect and how you present yourself actually outweighs your abilities in some ways. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I can teach you a skill set.
Yeah.
I can't teach you personality. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you can grow. If I can see that you have the potential to grow your personality, get more confident, make better decisions, then that's what I should nurture. Teaching you how to, trade or how to do ops or how to code something.
Yeah.
These are skill sets that people can teach you.
Interesting.
But the foundation and the spine of you, that's a wonderful thing.
I love that. I fully agree, and I'm leaning into that as well. So when you got the interview, you were picked for which job then? Actually,
the trader. I was picked to basically deliver trade tickets. So back then, trade tickets used to come in on a telex machine and on a fax machine. That would give you a rough idea of how old I am. And it was very simple. The trade tickets would come in. On there would be the attributes of the transaction, where it was buy, sell, what product it was, trade date, settlement date, whatnot. But on it was an address. So it was delivered to this guy. It was a James Palmer or Gary Webster or whatnot on this floor. And then I used to take a photocopy of it, deliver it to the trader. He would sign my copy and I'd put a reference number in and just keep a book of all the transactions.
Right.
Now, but what I used to do in order to, at this point, I didn't have any subject matter to talk to these traders about. So I started recording the trades myself.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, I'd put all the buys here and I'd put all the sales here and the clients here. So now every time a new transaction came in, I'd go and talk to the trader about, how's the position going? And then at that point, I'd grab someone's attention.
Right.
Now, if I can grab someone's attention, then I have their interest.
Right.
So here's an 18-year-old kid who's now bringing me trade tickets, now is, hosting a conversation with me about, my trading book.
So you were finding a way to connect with them while you were waiting for them to sign something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I needed to find some correlation between us because for them, I'm just a ticket boy.
Yeah.
I deliver tickets, I record tickets. They gave me a fancy title of, head of the telefax unit. and I was very proud.
Yeah,
And I'd dress like them. I'd wear a shirt and a tie. I didn't have to. I'm just a runner.
Were there other runners that were dressing like you, or?
Eventually, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, my job wasn't that unique. It happens a lot in trading houses in the UK back then, at that period.
Okay.
There was 2 entries into trading houses or banks or investment managers. Either you're a high-end graduate, or you're a school leaver, or you're in between.
Right.
But the ones that didn't go to university, usually it's based on their personality and their grit and their hustle. So if there's something within them that, that the hiring manager likes, and they can pick things up well, and they can represent themselves.
Interesting.
You get in. Nowadays, I don't think that happens.
Right.
I think even having a degree is like, a degree, you don't have a master's, you don't have a doctorate.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, the role is the same.
Right. It was interesting because that was the question I wanted to ask you, in that, do you think that same, process could happen today?
Yes and no. I think for myself, through my career, when I got to the stages of, managing a small team, a medium team, a large team and whatnot, remembering how I got there and how it was based on personality, not so much on academic achievements, I adopted that. So to answer your question, yes.
It depends.
But if there's hiring managers within my age range, they will look for that. They will look for that. So it's just a mindset you need. If you have the mindset and the maturity,
right,
you'll get hired.
Yeah.
And even if you look at some of the big traders in the world, they have these graduate trading programs and whatnot. They put them through various tests and scenarios.
Yeah.
They're looking for personality, they're looking for how you react. Your academics will get you there.
Yeah.
They'll get you to the door.
Yes.
But every now and again, there's a few wild cards, and I was probably maybe a wild card.
You said you're looking for someone who knows how to react. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, look, in these trading houses, especially on the trading side, they're looking for a certain demeanor, right?
Okay, tell me more.
In terms of someone that doesn't panic. You're dealing with a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right? This is on the trading side. So in a trading environment, you have the front office, the middle office, and the back office. Now, all of them are equally important. But the traders, they're in charge of the P, right? But the middle office and the back offices, they're there to preserve the L, right? To protect the L.
Right. Just for the audience, P&L. Profit
and loss,
Profit and loss, yeah.
So if you have discipline and you don't let emotions cloud your judgment, those are immediately very good attributes to have as a trader.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you need to have emotional
discipline.
Discipline?
Yeah, emotional discipline.
Detachment or not?
Detachment is in focus for sure. Yeah. And I put it like a personality that has suspension. And what I mean by that is you have a car that goes over bumps. And if you don't have good suspension, the car wobbles. Okay?
Right. Yeah.
It becomes a little bit uneven, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a good trader will have very stable suspension. No matter whatever the vehicles, they are stable.
Right.
They're unwavered. They don't lean.
Interesting.
They're not distracted. Nothing falls off.
Mm.
And I noticed that a lot in my career. A lot of the traders that I met through Citi, UBS, and then onto asset managers, and then eventually the commodities world. Yeah. You meet different types of traders,
right?
But I think the spine I've noticed in all of them, there is a sort of an essence of stability, discipline, and immense focus.
Interesting.
Yeah, throughout, even when they're off. Because it takes them a long time to switch off.
So did you always know that you had emotional discipline, or did you grow into that by observing the traders?
Well, I mean, when I got into, through Citigroup, when I eventually stopped delivering the tickets and became someone who tickets were delivered to, my focus wasn't really on, I want to be a trader.
Right.
Never had no desires to be one.
Right.
For me, I was just more interested in how this machine operates.
Right.
Okay. How does bank like this operate?
True,
Who
yeah.
invests? Right?
Yeah.
And then I started learning the products. So for me, it was like, okay, I want to learn the bond market. I want to learn the equities market.
Yeah.
Now, I saw these places as a school. Now, because I never went to university,
Interesting, yeah.
I saw Citigroup, Credit Suisse, UBS.
Yeah.
These were my university.
Very cool. Yeah, I get it.
Here, they were teaching me something. They were teaching me how systems work,
Yeah.
what each function does. Once a trainee's executed, what happens to it? Why does it happen? Who finances it?
Yeah.
What gets delivered? And when you study that on a massive scale,
Yeah.
and because you have I always wanted to start my own business. I thought, okay, obviously I'm not going to start a bank,
Yeah.
but maybe if I take the bank and go to an investment manager's,
Yeah.
I can learn how investment managers work. And then from there, maybe I'll go to a hedge fund. Then I'm getting I'm getting smaller, but I'm getting denser. And I'm
Right.
getting more stronger.
Right.
Because in a bank, you just perform a function.
Yes.
You don't get to hear or see what he, she, or
Yeah.
they do. So it was very purposely driven what I wanted to do.
Oh, so you had that vision in your mind?
It was calculative, yeah. I
Oh.
wanted to learn products,
Yeah.
but then I wanted to go to somewhere smaller
Right.
to learn how it works, to eventually one day, if there was an opportunity to
Do
do
your own.
something for myself.
Interesting.
It's a bit like,
Not many people have this vision.
do you know what? I think in my world, some do,
Right.
but I'll give you an example here in Singapore.
Yeah.
Singapore, there's a lot of coffee shops now, a lot
Yeah.
more than there was 15 years ago when I got here.
Like cafes and
Yeah,
yeah.
but most of them start as waiting tables. But the key is to start learning to make coffee. You
Yeah.
become a skilled barista,
Mm.
all right? But during the period of waiting, serving, studying the menu, barista, you're now well equipped to start your own business.
Yeah.
Or get into a position of management, and then from management move to another shop or another
Yes.
shop, and then so it's no different to what I was doing, but I was just doing it more in an area that is probably a little bit unknown to most.
Yeah, I mean, and the reason why I say that not many people have thought of it, maybe because I didn't, and I had no idea. I had no idea when I entered a bank how everything worked and what my, map would be. And actually, a lot of what you said resonated with me in that working on the job and learning on the job is probably the greatest school you could ever have, rather than just going to university and learn the theory of it.
I think university, and obviously it's very controversial when you talk about education. For me, university builds character. It will build you a character. And it will build you a foundation of friendships and memories that you will carry with you for the rest of your life. I mean, I do wish I went to university. I would have had a great time. But life had a different plan for me. And I just thought, okay, if I can't physically join all my friends in university, let me start by roaming the streets of London's financial district. And my friends were all probably 15, 20 years older than I was at the time. So my friends were all, married kids or going for a divorce, and I'm still 20 years old.
Yeah.
But I was accumulating so much knowledge on how these operating systems worked that I thought, okay, bonds, check, equities, check, FX market, and started to understand that. But it was more of how the liquidity and how the money started flowing into these and why it was happening. And then I started getting interested into other asset classes, like eventually commodities.
Tell me more about that, because how do you go from running tickets to then being the one receiving the tickets?
Opportunity, I think, had a lot to do with it, and I'd built a persona for myself. So it's like, okay, we have an opportunity. Oh, we're no need to hire. We got someone here from ground up. Obviously, I was cheap. I'm not going to cost them a lot of money, but you stay cheap for so long. Okay? Then you're cheap because you're useful.
Yeah.
Right? Then you become useful for someone else. and then your price starts increasing. So for me, it was look, I've already built a reputation as here's someone that's shown interest. He understands what's happening. He's at the front end of the chain.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's giving us the instructions. Now let him execute the instructions.
Right.
And so, yeah, it was just natural. I built up some good friendships, and networking helps, especially in those kind of industries.
Tell me more about that. Because I think a lot of young people sort of want to be, traders or go into the financial industry. Tell me more about how you did that, just even being a young
Well, look,
man.
I think when you want someone to work for you, you want them to represent you in some element, right?
Yeah.
So if I hire someone, and it goes back to the personality again. I want them to, if I'm not in the room, they can represent me, right? If they can represent the department, they can represent the function.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of stems back to that.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I actually fully agree. I think people don't realize how you are looked at or judged, not based on purely now on your academic qualifications, but whether that person wants you in your team to represent them.
Yeah, build yourself a persona. Let everyone, whatever experience someone has of you, make sure that when they walk away, they go, okay, that was good. I really enjoyed that conversation. It was to the point. You don't need to show you just need to show your business acumen, and your maturity, because these are mature, respectable companies. So stay focused.
Yeah.
Right. Make sure that the experiences that you give other people reflect who you are.
Yeah.
And that's something I learned very, very early on, is be mature. People will treat you like that. And when an opportunity comes up, they will want you to come and work for them.
Yeah, I know. I think it applies so much to today as well. I mean, and it could come in different forms, as I've known myself as well, sort of being out there in, what do you call it, social media or platforms like LinkedIn, sort of creates this visibility and this familiarity of yourself so that people remember you, because there's so much competition.
Yeah, I mean, what you do is far more brave than anything I've ever done, to be honest. I mean, putting yourself out there. Mine's just more, first it's internal in a business.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's how you're viewed in that business.
Yeah.
And then it's how you're viewed in that industry.
100%.
Because every industry is small, even sort of the social media circles, right?
Yeah.
But the difference with social media is that everyone knows you.
Yeah.
Without you not necessarily knowing anyone.
Yeah.
And within sort of trading houses or asset managers or banks, whatnot, you're able to influence that decision on who you are and influence that experience that people have with you.
Yeah.
And because, let's just say you're working with 100 people.
Yeah.
At some point, those 100 people are going to go to another company or another company here. So they take away the experiences they had with you to them.
Yes.
So it's like,
yeah, it carries forward.
Like? Yeah, I was like this. Or, what was she like? So, but obviously in social media, it's just
boom. Yeah.
It's everyone has an opinion and this, that. But
pros and cons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But opinions are. And I think I said this to you, when we first met. Opinions, if you don't seek advice from this person, why do you care about their opinion?
100%.
And I think that's one of the many mantras over the maybe 3 or 4 mentors that I've had in my life. There's something that's always been drilled into me. What he said, she said, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm starting to learn that too. I used to care so much about what everyone said. And now it's so much lighter.
Yeah.
When you don't, if you're not going to ask the person for an advice, why do you care?
Yeah, why do you care?
Yeah.
But I think you have to say that out loud.
Yes.
Because thinking is just one conscience.
100%.
And you should speak out loud. And you know what? Even talking to yourself.
Yes.
Just do it.
We talked about it, right?
Yeah. Talk to yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you can't convince yourself, how are you going to convince others?
You're absolutely right. I mean, I love how we're going from trading to mantras, but no, I love it because Because actually, I mean, I don't know if you had to do that while you were in your career as well, because I've only recently started to talk to myself in terms of the resonance and the vibration of your voice actually carries you through in terms of that feedback loop, in terms of convincing yourself before you can convince others. I actually fully agree with that.
Put it this way, before you leave the house or you're going to a birthday party or a dinner, you check yourself out in the mirror to make sure you look nice.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If you have an idea or a vision about something you want to do, why don't you talk to yourself about it?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Talk to yourself about it. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was very uncomfortable at first to actually say out like...
You can disguise it. You can put on a big pair of headphones. You can hold your phone and walk down the street and pretend you're talking to someone. If it gives you that kind of comfort. But just do that. And I've done that for years.
That's awesome.
It's whether is this a good idea? Should I move to this company? What happened today? But I have to do that.
Yeah. I do that now.
Not all of us have someone to talk to.
Agree. You know what? I do that now along my park walks. And I actually talk to sometimes ChatGPT and just talk out my thoughts. And I think it really helps to ingrain that whatever vision you have, questions. Yeah. Because as you speak out to the universe, it actually things start happening.
There's a lot to say about manifestation.
Yes. Yes.
But in order to manifest, you need to, so for me, manifestation is two hands that clap. The thought and the verbal sort of output that you have. Okay?
Yes.
Think it, say it.
Yes. Right? And believe it.
Believe it is the derivative of that.
Agree.
Yeah.
I love this because I realized that if you can't say it out loud, you don't have enough belief about it.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So how do you go from equities to then bonds and then set up your own hedge fund?
Well, when I learned the bond market, I knew that in order to make myself valuable, I needed the equity market. I didn't want to go out into the sort of the job market of, okay, the only product I know is bonds. I thought I need a hedge.
Right.
So the equities market is something that I learned. Actually, I learned the equities market before the bond market. And I thought, how do I make myself valuable? Okay. Because, I don't walk into a business and look at the talent. I look at the competition, right? And everything's a competition. So how do I make myself attractive?
Right.
I didn't graduate with a degree from the best universities.
Yeah.
I have Citigroup behind me.
Yeah.
I have UBS. I have Credit Suisse. I have brands behind me. These were my universities, and I have 2 products. Mm-hmm. So from there, I went to a small investment managers down on the London Embankment. Great place. And I think that's where I met my sort of second mentor, so to speak. And there I learned how a business actually works in terms of what do the portfolio managers do, what do the operations do, what do the finance team, the importance of compliance, the importance of tax.
Yes.
I started to see the cogs of all of it and how all of them have an effect on everything else. The benefactor of an execution of a trade to the risk manager, what the risk manager does, and what the dependencies on finance. I learned how the whole model works, and it was crystal clear.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
And that's when I thought, okay, I'm getting nearer to the point of starting something myself.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, I met a lot of people in the industry. I met a lot of friends, whatnot. And I always said, you know what, if we ever get an opportunity to start our own hedge fund, right? I mean, I've got bonds, I've got equities, I know how the operating models work, I know how the systems work, I know how the cash management works, everything. I think we could do something. I had a few friends, they were traders and whatnot. And then one day I got a call, a reach out, and they said, look, there's a group of guys. They're all getting together and they want to start a multi-strat credit hedge fund, right? But they're all traders. All 7 of them are traders, okay? They don't need another trader, right? What they want is someone that understands the operating model, someone that can do the systems, someone that can set up and start hiring people, whatnot. I said, yeah, okay. So we met, we chatted, and I teamed up with these guys. And one of them, I still don't know how till this day, he had a contact at Glencore. Now, Glencore for me was just a a fairy tale celebrity. It was a monster company, a monster commodities trading company, a mining company. They were like completely out of my league.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just an equities bond guy. These are like super giants.
Yeah.
But they were interested in opening a multi-strat credit hedge fund, and they were looking for a team. Now, for them, it was more of an interest, you know, to sort of use the money in their treasury to better uses.
Okay.
Usually money in treasuries put on deposit or to earn some yield overnight and, you know, whatnot. They took a chance. So I plodded along. I left and it was another risk. I was in a very comfortable job.
Yeah.
I was getting paid very well. I didn't have to worry about anything, but it didn't fulfill me as much. I always had an ambition to build something myself.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of carried me through my entire career, having that desire to do that.
Yeah, that was
anyway.
Yeah,
we
one of
did
my
it.
questions as well. Like, why would Glencore back a hedge fund?
It's a good question.
Credit
Good
hedge fund.
Well, I think it was. Do you know what? I think at the time, the CEO at the time and the CFO at the time, they were quite visionaries. And a lot of these commodity trading companies, whether it's the Glencores, the Traffies, or the Gunvors and whatnot, their CEOs, they're very entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Right? They don't get to a position like that of thinking singular.
Yeah.
You know, they have a very macro vision of everything. And, you know, they can reach north, south, east and west in their thought process.
Yeah.
So for them, it's like, I mean, they're a very successful business. They don't need a multi-strat credit hedge fund.
Yeah.
Right? But here's a group that can, you know, probably yield maybe 10, 12% a year by giving them access to funds and let them trade.
Yeah.
And we did very, very well. And, you know, I think first year, we did like 19% return or something obscene.
As a credit hedge fund.
Yeah.
It's very high.
And then I started growing out the ops side of it, started working with some tech providers. And then I moved out of the London office, which was on Mayfair, and I set up an office in Soho.
Yeah.
And that sort of changed everything for me, because I thought to myself, right, okay, I feel like I've got my own little company here.
Yeah.
Not the hedge fund, but more the ops side of it. And I think probably watching way too many American movies, I thought, well, if I have an office, I'm going to put a pool table, I'm going to put a table tennis table, I'm going to have a nice kitchen, a lounge.
Yeah.
And it started getting to that point of like, okay, I think I can have fun with it.
Yeah.
But, you know, it only lasted 3 years.
Right.
And because I think Glencore at the time wanted to go into sort of other areas of business, and actually the credit crunch happened as well.
Right.
So that was in 2008, 2009, it sort of decided to close. But I think I made an impression on the Glencore guys.
Right.
And they saw something in me, especially the HR crew. They introduced me to the oil division in London.
Okay.
And they said, look, I think you should take a look at this guy. There's something, you know, he's got a background in operations. He thinks from a lateral perspective. He understands macroeconomics.
Yeah.
He's mathematically, he ticks the boxes.
Right.
And he's learnt the bond market and the equity market. You can see he's done a hustle.
Yeah.
The only discount is he doesn't have the shining degree that we as Glencore want. And they took a chance.
Right.
And I walked in there and very humbled. I mean, for me, it's like the Harvard of commodity trading company. It's awesome. And
it's such an incredible journey, and it's really like you never know what happens in your
You never know.
Exactly.
You never know.
I love it. I have so many thoughts are running through my mind.
Yeah, but the thing is, I didn't know anything about oil.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, for me, the closest I got to oil was olive oil.
Yeah.
That was it. I didn't know anything about it because it was something physical.
Yeah.
Bond and the equity market is just papers and numbers.
I have so many questions to ask. We're going to get to the commodities part. But first of all, I think you mentioned a couple of times mentors.
Yes.
And for me personally, I never had a mentor.
Maybe you're meant to be someone's mentor.
Oh, thank you. No, yeah. Oh, thank you so much. But I wanted to ask, when you said you had your second mentor, your first mentors, what did they actually do?
Do you know what? It's not, I think for me is they listened. Now,
and they weren't someone you were reporting to.
The first one was someone I was reporting to. The second one was someone that owns the entire company. So for me, he was more like he was a mentor, but someone that I wanted to emulate.
Okay.
He's someone I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And for me, the second guy.
I wanted to ask because, many different people have different definitions of what a mentor is.
Yeah.
And sometimes you wonder, can they be your boss or can they not be your boss? So
yeah, they can be a boss. They can also be a colleague. And I think one of the great characteristics of a mentor is that they listen with the intent to hear you, right? And sometimes you meet people that listen to you with the intent to reply.
Right.
So they're listening with you and already figuring out their reply.
Okay.
So a mentor for me is someone that listens and is hearing you and then takes the time to reply.
Interesting.
But it's also guidance. Making me aware of my social surroundings as well. Because for me, I was never really focused on, what he said, she said, whatnot, and, all maybe politics are going around me in the office. I never really focused on that. For me, it was, I want to build a business.
Interesting.
I want to build the best business. I want to get the best people in.
Yeah. And
I want to build an epic service or a product.
Yeah, I love
that.
But
mentors, they help you think differently. They understand how the human element of a business works as well.
Right.
And they detach you from your focus as well, which you need someone to do that. So they gave me some skill sets, some soft skill sets I never had before.
Interesting.
So a mentor is someone that probably opens up the many, we all have doors, but they open up doors that we never thought we even had a key for. And they're usually a lot older than I was. But I think now that I'm probably reaching the age that they are, I do find myself subconsciously behaving and delivering narrative to people that are
younger,
believe that they're starting. When someone says to me, I'm just starting, you started a long time ago.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
You all started a long time ago.
Yeah, true.
Every single day you're building the characteristics of your life which will help you in your future. So, I hope that answers.
No, it does. It does. It just gives me and also many people perspective, because this thing about mentor does come up a lot, because not many people really know what is it in the first place? What is it meant to serve? Who should you approach? And based on my observation, I think guys are usually better at finding mentors. And I'm just trying to also figure that out, and also to help the audience to know how to approach mentorship in a way that works for them, because I think for different people it means different things.
Yeah, sometimes it's a comfort you have with someone as well. That really helps. Yeah, I think you're right though. I think men, for some reason, I'm not a psychologist, but for some reason men do find mentors quicker. Yeah. And I think maybe that's like the whole father figure, the whole superhero thing, where there's someone that you want to be strong as, or as fast as, or want to fly like, or help. I think I always thought that was a part of it. Yeah. But I think in the last sort of 15, 20 years, there's a lot of very successful female business owners, CEOs, speakers, podcasters.
Podcasters, yes.
But no, I mean, even what you're doing, there's many people that would love to sit and talk for a living. Imagine that. Your job is yourself and your voice and your ability to listen. Yeah, yeah. I mean, loads of people would love to do what you're doing, but they don't. Maybe they never met someone that encouraged them to do it.
Agree. Yeah.
You know? And that's, I think, also the role of a mentor. A mentor can convince you, can present ideas that in the past you thought was out of your reach.
Yeah, I love
or
that.
not part of your DNA.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think that's such a crucial role of at least how you defined a mentor and what resonates with me is the giving you, not permission, but you know what I mean, giving you permission to dream bigger than you thought, bigger than what you know is possible.
Yeah.
The other thing that struck me was, apart from the mentorship, was how you moved from a trading role and a front office role to an operational role, which is quite a big difference because not many people can make that transition. It's quite painful. And same for the other way around as well.
I think it's the fact that it's a bit like you're just playing a role, right, in an organization.
Interesting.
And I wanted to understand the organization.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't want to just be an actor in the movie. I wanted to know how the movie worked.
Yeah, love that.
I wanted to be in part of the production, the costume, the directing.
Yeah.
I wanted to build it myself.
Yeah.
But you know, through the bond and equity stage of my life, I thought that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
But when I switched over to the commodities side, things changed for me.
Okay.
Things changed because these are completely different. It's the same jungle, but just different animal.
Interesting.
Yeah. Very, very different traders, very different business, and very different attitudes and very different environment.
First of all, I loved what you said about you didn't want to just be an actor. I don't know if you knew that I just published a solo episode with the title called Life Isn't Just a Movie, It's a Cinema.
Oh, really?
I did. I know. So
okay. I'm going to watch that one.
Yeah, I just did it over the weekend. But I fully agree with you that sometimes we think we're just the actors, but actually, depending on how you are, you can actually direct and know the entire, how the movie works so that you can see the chain and see where you could influence it and know yourself better as well. Because sometimes you just think you're playing one part and you're good at that, but actually you didn't realize that you might be good at other parts too.
You're a spin-off.
Yeah.
You're a spin-off in the same way that successful movies have spin-offs, successful TV series have spin-offs. In fact, successful businesses have spin-offs.
Love that.
A lot of the guys in banks spin off to create a hedge fund.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of traders spin off to set up their own commodity trading company. So I think my way of doing it was no different to what they wanted to do, in the same way as you.
Yeah.
You worked in the finance industry. Okay, you were a character in someone else's play.
Yes.
Okay, but you probably went for a period of going, okay, I value, I'm actually something, I'm someone. I can create something myself.
Yes.
But maybe, and the tough bit is, the validation of yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Can I do it?
Yes.
Oh, maybe I'm not that good. Right? No one, and sometimes, and even a comment can derail you slightly.
Yeah, for sure.
But if it does, then obviously you need to go back and make sure the suspension of your personality is still strong.
I have one or two final questions about hedge funds before we go to commodities.
Oh, sure.
Because there are a lot of young people who dream of entering a hedge fund. I remember when I was in university, there were two roles that my peers would always dream of going into. One was investment banking. The other one was hedge funds. What is it like running a hedge fund?
Well, the hedge fund I was at, I was never solely in charge of running it. Okay, so there'll be a head trader, and there'll be someone head of ops and someone head of. It was a very small fund, but I can tell you what it's like to work there. It's aggressive, right? It's not a. Some of them are friendly, some of them are not friendly. Okay, but this is what I said in the beginning. If you can remove your emotions, right, and just absorb and focus on what's going on, you'll love it. Obviously, the financial part of it is very, very rewarding, of course. But if you think of it as a schooling for yourself, to learn everything about the business and have a vision of something bigger,
right,
then you'll do very, very well. But listen, and don't always think you know everything. Right? This is one of the issues with maybe some graduates, not all of them, some of them very mature, some are very smart, that they're in a rush. Now, I was never in a rush. Just you're never late to something. Okay, you arrive at the time you mean to.
Exactly. Yeah.
So take your time, listen, learn. It's not a silly old man telling you something. Okay, there's a reason he's telling you. Okay, because you have not been old. This guy has been young. So there's an advantage to that. So I still think it's a great place to go into. I'm biased now. I think the commodities market is far more interesting for learning.
Yeah.
Because it's commodities.
Yeah.
I think hedge funds now are being challenged with new technology, especially with AI.
Yeah.
I think you don't necessarily need that. And look, I think in the future there will be an AI-driven hedge fund.
Yeah. Yeah.
With minimal people.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, okay, maybe not aspire to go and work in a hedge fund, but maybe aspire to absorb yourself in the new technology that will allow you to build a hedge fund.
Interesting.
So again, it goes back to that story we were just talking about, is you want to go into a hedge fund, so you want to be part of someone's play.
Right.
Use the tools to make the production.
Love it. Yeah.
And do it yourself. You don't have to be big. You can be small.
Agree. No, there's so many thoughts that came to my mind in that sometimes a lot of us aspire to be that role or that aspire to have that job that you think everybody wants. But at the end, what is the end goal? Like, what is the purpose of it all? Is it to just get that job just because it pays well? Or is it to equip yourself with the necessary skills so that you can then create whatever it is you want and you can be more adaptable to whatever the environment is going to be 5, 10, 20 years from now?
I think it's an eclectic mix of all of it. I mean, when you have a job in maybe a commodities house or a hedge fund or a trading, you have a purpose.
Yeah.
Your role has a purpose and it's helping the company.
Yeah.
Obviously, the monetary aspects of it is great and comfortable, but also you're now in a community. You're an internal community with the people you work with, your colleagues.
Yeah.
And you're in an external community within the industry. So you become someone. You start building yourself as a sort of a subconscious brand.
Right.
You start building your character. You start showing off to the internal management or colleagues and industry of what you can do, what your potential is. I think it's having that sort of affirmation of value. I'm valuable. You know, I work for X company. I work in this department. I work for this guy. And you don't know it, but eventually when you start going for jobs in other places, you will reference the places that you worked.
100%.
You'll reference the person you work for.
Yeah.
In the same way that you may not enjoy it when you're there, but you'll look back and you'll enjoy it. Same way like school.
Yeah.
No one likes school. But when you leave school, especially me, I loved school. But when I think and look back at school, I think, wow, I had a great time. What a great school.
Yeah. So the brands and the companies you work for, I think, they're
it's
different.
Important.
It's very important. And I think there's no one path, of course, to your own success. But I think sometimes I myself as well, like, we don't appreciate enough for going into big branded institutions because it's actually extremely important down the road in terms of who you represented. That actually gives you more credibility.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you work for a big brand.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I worked for Glencore for 7-8 years. But if you work for a Glencore or a Trafford or a Vitol or a Gunvor, whatnot, doors will open to other shops because these are the big guys.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of middle guys. Okay? And there's a lot of people that were once the Traffids and the Gunvors that are just starting out.
Yeah.
Okay, so they will want someone that's worked for those brands.
Interesting, yeah.
So this is for me why I think working for, say, Citi, then Credit Suisse. Okay, Credit Suisse wouldn't have opened their door to me if I didn't work for Citi.
Yeah.
Right? Then I wouldn't have got to the other shop if I didn't have the credibility of the other shops.
Yeah.
But then it gets to a point of, okay, right, this asset manager wants to hire me because I work for these 3 shops.
Yeah.
And then I switched completely and went to a hedge fund. Right?
Yeah.
Then when you get to a commodities company, they're like, wow, okay, here's someone that's worked at these institutions that understands things. Or there's attributes within these institutions that we'd love to adopt in our business.
Yes.
And that, for me, is it takes the mindset of a really good CEO or an MD to think like that. Okay, there's no point me hiring someone from commodities because they're going to be working on the same models as we are.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's an accumulation of all the different experiences that you've had.
Yeah.
And then being in the right experience, maturity, energy of it so that you then call in someone who then appreciates all the aspects of you that came before.
Yeah.
And that wraps up part 1 of episode 21 of the You Never Know podcast. Join us in part 2 as we uncover the world of commodities and energy and how tokenization can help bring this asset class to a more digital future.